Seeing as I'm still knee-deep in the Munchlax grind that is the Gen 4 Living Dex, I suppose now would be a good opportunity to attach an addendum to the original video to overview some comments that I got on the original video. So Calibro commented, "So you are admitting to piracy to make this video since you don't have all the games. Got it. Not very smart to publicly admit. Both the GameCube and the GBA are nearly 2 decades old at this point. Time is a cruel mistress to hardware, and especially since the Pokemon series is geared at children, the cartridges are guaranteed to have been mistreated throughout their existence. It took a lot of cleaning and coaxing to get my authentic copy of Leaf Green to work properly, and I am extremely fortunate that the first gen remakes do not have a battery for saving or the RTC, as I do not have enough confidence in my soldering skills to replace a battery safely. I could probably do it if I really needed to, but why risk hundreds of dollars worth of games? We are truly a good chunk of time removed from when you can just walk into a store and pick up a new in-box GBA title for $40 and GameCube games for about $50. It is not a very realistic outlook to expect everybody that tries this challenge to fork over $1,000 in market value to complete a virtual library of critters. Granted, if down the line Game Freak or Nintendo were to ever copy how Capcom, Konami, or even Square Enix re-release collections of their retro games, I would absolutely buy that in a heartbeat. I know during the creation of the original Gen 3 video, there were rumors exactly that was happening, but sadly the recent Pokemon Presents came and went with zero news on a Pokemon Legacy collection. Part of the point of these guides is showing an example of a more realistic means of getting access to the games and their content for the challenge, and paying thousands for it is just not. And No1001 commented, "Please don't show counterfeits." Good eye, I wonder how many people noticed that the cards shown there were indeed fake. I honestly had a rough time these days knowing if a game is fake if I just see the front of it. However, in this instance, using fake cards was on purpose simply due to me just liking how they looked over the pictures of authentic copies. Quick tip though, unless the people making counterfeits catch on, if you are dead set on getting real copies of the Pokemon titles, all the GBA titles have a 2x2 gold contact pattern on the back that can be easily seen through the semi-translucent cartridge. Usually fake copies have random dots instead of a pattern. Saxor96 commented, "Also Moltres is not a part of the postgame. The first 3 Sevii Islands can be accessed as soon as you get the Volcano badge, so you could technically get Moltres even earlier in Gen 1. I always associate the entirety of the Sevii Islands to be post-game due to how I always play through the first gen remakes, but yeah, that's an oversight on my end." Mr. Person Zero had a good amount of points in their comments. Let's go down the list here. Also, side note, you can get the other fossil in the Emerald postgame. This applies to Anorith/Leap, not to Ammonite or Kabuto. I should have been more descriptive in the video itself, noting that I had meant this for the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald fossils and not the Gen 1 ones. But it's understandable that people would get confused on what this meant since the section of the video focused on the non-Gen 3 Pokemon. It should also be mentioned that you could get the Johto starters in one save file of XD by completing Mount Battle, one time for each one. This mainly applies to those who want a living dex with the least amount of breeding as possible. Well, I didn't notice, seeing as Colosseum just hands you the 3 Johto starters in their second evolution stage, I didn't really go out of my way to see if there were any other methods of getting them. Getting them via the XD Mount Battle rewards are of course fair game, but I don't really know how reasonable it is to brave the challenge 3 times versus just moving the D-pad back and forth a couple of times with a Flame Body Pokemon for the rest of the Evo stages. It was either that or replaying the entire game and doing the 100 Trainer Challenge after purifying all 48 Shadow Pokemon all over again. You do not need to do the 100 Trainer Challenge in the Japanese Colosseum to get Celebi. You just need to purify all 48 Pokemon. On that note, since you used the GB Transfer Homebrew software to move a Celebi from Gen 2 to 3, you could have just gotten the same Celebi from the 10th anniversary event from a save file that is out there on the internet. Admittedly, I may have misunderstood the requirements for the Japanese version of Colosseum and may have figured the requirement resembled what was needed to get Ho-Oh. Just purifying the 48 Shadow Pokemon is much easier than going through Mount Battle again, but that is still quite the time sink if you don't want to augment your save file to work with the Japanese version of Colosseum, or augment the US version of the game. On the game side of things, you will need a total of 7 games. This is not necessarily true. If you want the absolute minimum of games to catch all Pokemon, you need Ruby or Sapphire, Emerald, Leaf Green, Colosseum, the Japanese one, and XD, which is a minimum of 5 games. Emerald or Leaf Green has to be Japanese as well. For the event Pokemon, you need the Colosseum bonus disc for Jirachi, and a Japanese Colosseum bonus disc for Celebi. For Mew and Deoxys, you will need to rely on event ROMs. However, since you only have Leaf Green, you need to do 3 full playthroughs to be able to trade the 3 starter families out of the game, which is pretty ridiculous, so you may as well have both Fire Red and Leaf Green. Since you're at 6 games, you might as well get all 7. Other than that, great video. Really like the breakdown on where you get the Pokemon, whether it's the GBA or GameCube games. Well, first, thanks. Thinking about it now, maybe I should not have used such definitive language. Just saying you need all 7 games for the Living Dex isn't exactly accurate, especially with how the GameCube titles have a good amount of overlap. I remember reading a good amount of comments noting how you don't need to play Fire Red since XD has its Pokemon pool overlap with Red's exclusives. More than any other Pokemon generation, I feel the third one really empowers the meaning of one's journey, and ultimately, if you want to go through all 7 titles, and more if you want to get that Celebi legit, that is your choice. And finally, a dual comment from Jazzy Michael and Gashpor highlighted a key thing that I honestly forgot existed. The mystery gift events are legitimate ways of obtaining Ho-Oh, Lugia, Mew, Deoxys, and Celebi. These were distributed by Nintendo and still exist. Authentic copies of these e-reader tickets containing the events can be obtained online and used to encounter legit event Pokemon the way it was intended. Emerald, Colosseum, and XD are not necessary to complete the National Pokédex. The only authentic copy of the e-reader ticket is the Eon ticket for Ruby/Sapphire. Anything else for other legendaries is custom made and is not authentic. If you want to get them, you need to use the wireless adapter for the GBA with Fire Red, Leaf Green, or Emerald. I had a sinking feeling that I had forgotten something while making the Gen 3 video, and that was overviewing the e-reader. At one point, I had thought about getting one since people had figured out how to print out e-reader cards to circumvent the ludicrous prices that legit Eon tickets go for these days. In the end, I felt the choices I made just made things simpler for myself. But just knowing that there are multiple options when it comes to having access to official or custom events should be a relief for people that are working steadily through their own challenges as well. There's this excellent video from Amablissy that shows how to get these events working even without the wireless adapter and the e-reader. That's pretty much all the comments I wanted to directly address in a video, but it's always a joy reading the slow comments from people talking about their own current Living Dex adventures. I'm still steadily working on the Gen 4 Living Dex as of working on this update, so wish me luck. I'm really starting to lose my sanity and patience over these Munchlax trees. Although for me, let's hope that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel.